Come with us to Garrison, New Jersey, where a small-town pinball-playing sheriff finds himself put to the test against corrupt NYPD cops in 1997's Copland. Stay with us. Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. Eric.
Dean.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. How are you, my friend?
No big statement was coming my way.
Oh, I was expecting something. You always not a loss for words.
Just a simple salutation for today.
Oh, okay.
And to welcome everybody aboard. If you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and hit the like button. That certainly helps support the show. And if you're listening to us on any of your podcast providers, you can certainly make sure you follow us or like us or however they want you to do it. So you make sure you find out when the new episodes drop. Here's a hint: they're every Thursday. Write it down if you have a
Write
pen.
it down.
That was kind of sexy.
Put it in your notes.
Write it down. Take your pen out.
All right. Let's not get too.
This is the podcast will only be 2 minutes.
It's going to be it's going to be that kind of podcast tonight.
And we're finished.
And we're finished.
Listen, we've got a lively group, so expect a lot of fun. This is going to be a great episode. We're looking forward to. So let's not delay, Eric, because we got some guests that we're going to be rolling out. We're going to be Rolanding out. So let's go with our first guest, Mr. Roland Arucci. He is the creator and host of the Ready Speaker podcast. You can find that on YouTube. So subscribe to us first, then go see Roland, and then subscribe to Roland. Do it in that order. Give us the first one, and then look up Ready Speaker. And Roland does great shows. He does deep dive information about movies. He really talks about cinematography and style and tone, the kind of stuff that we don't talk about here. So I'm surprised that he likes to do our show. welcome, Roland.
I haven't missed an episode yet.
Yes. Roland, so welcome aboard, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great to have you, Roland.
Thank you. Pleasure being here.
Great to be had. Let's see. In his non-Van Halen sweatshirt, but he's back in the hole from Shawshank. Jerry Sullivan is joining us once again.
Greetings
for this episode. How are you, Jerry?
I'm well, and you?
I'm doing
good.
Just capital.
Excellent.
Welcome, sir. Welcome.
She's in the center finally. I didn't have to tell her to adjust her camera. I didn't have to do any direction this time.
Tonight, she came prepared.
She came ready to drop the hammer down on Copland. Christy Cuomo, how are you?
I am well, thank you. I practiced all day.
That's it, huh?
Sitting in the middle?
Yeah.
Not moving.
Felt like a Hollywood.
Last but not least, we call him the professor of our podcast. He is the sometimes the dissenting voice, but always brings cogent conversation. How do you like that? Teach. Is that a $50 word?
That's cogent. A $50 word. Yeah. It's not, I guess sometimes I bring it. I'm not always cogent, right?
Okay. Coherent? How about coherent?
Okay.
Mr. Nick Leshy, welcome aboard. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing great. Love doing this. So thanks for having me back.
Yes. Always a pleasure, sir. Always.
Yeah. As long as you keep paying your monthly dues, you get to do episodes. That's, you remit that invoice and you're good to go.
I'm a little behind, but I'll get it.
You shouldn't have said that. Now we're going to have to just... All right. Nick won't be able to stay for the whole episode, so we'll move on. But no, anyway, we're talking about easily from the day I saw it, and I saw it in the theater, one of my top 10 favorite films of all time.
Wow.
Which is Copland. Surprising? Is that a surprise?
Top 10, I would think.
Yeah, it is in my top 10.
Yeah,
I absolutely.
Top 10 shot in Garrison, or is it?
It wasn't shot in Garrison. Garrison is in. Well, that's the confusing part. There is no Garrison in New York, but there's not a Garrison in New Jersey. But no, it's top 10 of all time. I really love this film from the moment I saw it, when I walked into the theater to when I walked out. And you know what? There may be some dissenting opinions. That's okay, because it's been nice having you on the show. So. Nick worked his way back in after Heat, so it can be done. It can be done.
Yeah.
I loved it a lot better than Heat.
And oddly enough, this is another De Niro film, and it has another face-off with one of his early day classic actors as well, which we'll get to. But let me get to the stats first, and then we'll dive into this. So this was released in August of 1997, written and directed by James Mangold. This was only his second film, amazingly enough, as well. His first film was a movie called Heavy, which didn't even make $1 million. I couldn't even find how much it was made for. But anyway, we'll get to that soon. This had a $15 million budget, surprisingly enough, and only made $63.7 million box office. So for the star power that this had, you could probably say this wasn't a resounding hit. No, which is odd, So let's go around. Roland, when did you first enter Copland?
I actually saw it when it came out, and like you, I think I was impressed by it back then. Of course, I rewatched it then.
I got what you said there.
Yeah. It's I mean, it has I think it's definitely a film of its time. It has a very gangster element, very Goodfellas. Even now, I'm actually have it up, so I'm looking at the trailer and looping for me. But even Fort Apache the Bronx has a very similar feel to Fort Apache the Bronx. Mm-hmm. So it has you can see the influences of the time of it. I really don't think it holds up for me in a rewatch, and there's a few reasons. There's things that work for me that I don't think it can be done today, where you can't critique cop culture the way this critique cop culture back then, as it's definitely shifted in the last 20 years. You could never do a film or storyline like this where everyone's corrupt and there's no redeemable character, really, except the guy who seems almost like he's on the short bus.
Yes.
Which
we'll get to that too. Yeah. I think we need to talk about that character.
Yeah, and I think that's my cons with it. Yeah, those characters, the flawed good characters. That's probably my biggest con with this. Besides the gangster tempo, is that anybody who's good is kind of so flawed. It's weird.
Well, everything is shades of gray in this film. Yeah, it's just to what degree are you? Yeah. On the lighter side or on the darker side.
Right.
So Christy, let me move over to Christy, and then we're gonna deep. Roland's already opening up the package and getting us started. So there's a lot to unpack. So let's get through, and then we're gonna go hit back on. I definitely want to turn around on the Freddie Heflin character and what's his deal there. So Christy, what about you?
I did see it in the theater. I still enjoy the film. It's definitely a film of its time. A lot of it, certain aspects, obviously with racism and sexism, do not age well, but I enjoy it. I watched it twice. I enjoy the performances. I really like this movie. So I'm gonna be disagreeing with Roland and maybe some others.
Okay. We'll see. Let's see what Eric has to say. When did you see that? Did you see this in the theater back in 97?
I did not.
No. Okay.
I saw it maybe a year later. I rented it.
Did you just say a year ago?
By your recommendation.
Was it my command? Was I heavy-handed in my recommendation?
No, you said it's like, oh man, you got to see this film. I rented it. I honestly, I didn't think much of it.
Or Dean at the time.
So I thought it was a solid, good, cop thriller. Mm-hmm. But for me, I had a problem with the cast. The casting is what the problem is for me. And I guess we'll get into that.
We will get into that. There's point number 2, or that may even be point number 1. Jerry, what you got?
I don't remember when I first saw it. Right now, I kind of feel like that scene where they're Superboys walking out to the pool, because when I rewatched this on Sunday and Monday, I was just like, what the hell did I ever like about this film?
Oh, no. Oh, no.
And a lot of it, we've already touched on some things, but I seriously, and I legitimately remember liking it when it came out on the list of things to subjects here. I thought, yeah, that'll be good. And when I just rewatched it, I will never get that 3.5 hours of my life back again.
I feel like I'm getting sandbagged in this episode.
I thought I was the only one tonight, honestly.
All right. Throwing a lifeline to Nick Lesher.
It's odd that Dean and I are
the guy who hated Heat. No.
Yeah.
The guy who hated Heat is now the guy I'm relying on to be my savior.
What am I, Swiss cheese?
Jesus, I'm in a bad way.
Yeah, well, now it's even 3 against 3. I side with Christy and Dean. I liked Copland. I saw this before it came out because I went. It was one of those preview screenings. Mm-hmm. So the only 2 preview screenings I ever went to in my life was Pulp Fiction and Copland. Wow. So the version I saw actually had more scenes that were playing up the racial divide. Yeah. There was a scene at the end with Stallone where he had lost a lot of weight when he shot it, and then they had to do a reshoot when it was released. So as I was watching this again for this podcast episode, I was remembering some of the stuff I'd seen. Like the rooftop scene was a lot worse in the version I remember seeing. But it held up. Like, I guess I enjoyed it when I saw it then. I thought I loved the Freddy character. I loved what Stallone was doing. And we'll talk about this later, I'm sure. But even Stallone, looking back, he's like, I wish I never did this movie because he thought it was messing up his career. But I thought, he played it so well. And one of my favorite characters that he's played. And he is a flawed character, like Roland said. And that's part of what I like about it, I think, But we can talk about that. But
Stallone's reaction to the non-success of this film was quite interesting. Yeah, because he was doing Daylight and Cliffhanger. I mean, he was he had put the Rockies behind him for the most part by the 90s until Rocky V, but was kind of becoming in the Stallone, the Van Damme, that whole action hero genre. He was firmly in it. So for him to do a straight up drama like this and really kind of test his dramatic chops and be the antithesis of what he was, gaining 40 pounds but not muscle, was very interesting. So yeah, let's roll through the cast just because it is one of the most expansive casts, and you could take that you could take that both ways. I think you could take it as this cast is overloaded, or you could take it as this is like the Avengers of casting for a New York film. This is a New York film as well. So back in the 90s, you still had like movies like Rounders being made that had that New York feel. Smoke, which was squarely in Brooklyn, had that, or I think it was in Brooklyn or Queens, had that New York feel to it, and you still had that, it's something I think particular to the 90s. So this was stacked with New York actors, none including, though, let's go with Sylvester Stallone as Sheriff Freddie Heflin. He is the lead. And like Nick said, don't let this betray you, though. This is not a Stallone style film. It's probably the straightest thing he had done probably up until this point. Harvey Keitel, great. He was kind of in a career renaissance coming off Reservoir Dogs in 92. He was kind of, he was big in the piano. So Harvey Keitel's kind of was in the 90s was still kind of a big thing, really bankable actor. Of course, Ray Liotta, the great Ray Liotta, teaming up again with Robert De Niro from Goodfellas. Peter Berg, who is now more known as a director than an actor. He kind of parlayed his acting thing into becoming a director. Some of his stuff is kind of schlocky like Battleship, but then he does decent stuff like Lone Survivor. Janine Garofalo, Robert Patrick, who was one of my favorite actors in this movie. Robert Patrick was just so good. Really, you've only ever seen him as like the T-1000 pretty much up until that point. He was the Terminator's nemesis and didn't really get to do anything with that role. It really wasn't a speaking role, except for Call to John. Michael Rappaport as Murray Superboy Babbage, Annabella Sciorra, Noah Emmerich, Kathy Moriarty. So that's a Raging Bull reunion with De Niro. John Spencer, Frank Vincent. So there's another Goodfellas reunion. Malik Yoba as Detective Carson. Arthur Nasarello, who's he's one of those mob guys. He always looks like he's a mobster. He plays mobsters. He looks like a mobster. He probably might have been. He's still alive, actually. Victor Williams as Russell Ames. Edie Falco, so a lot of Sopranos connections in here. She's Berta, very small part in the beginning as the bomb expert. Mel Gorham, who was kind of a New York actress as well. She was in a lot of stuff in the 90s. Paul Herman, that's another, that's a Goodfellas and a Sopranos link there. Paul Calderon, which is one of the great New York actors. He's one of those guys, you as soon as you see him, you know his face. He's been in everything. Vincent Laresca, Method Man, as Shondell, the rooftop guy. Deborah Harry, who in the theatrical cut, you barely see her. If you guys all rented this did you guys watch this on Prime or rent it?
Yeah.
Pretty much. Then you saw the direct. Actually, what everyone saw was the director's cut, which was a lot longer. And to Nick's point, it had a different ending. The original theatrical ending was cut from this, from the director's cut, oddly enough. Finally, John Ventimiglia as one of the cops. He was Artie Bucco in Sopranos. And then Tony Sirico, Paulie Walnuts. In photos only as Toy Torillo. Yeah. He was a mobster he gets credited, but he was in like 2 photographs in the movie. He wasn't even like in the movie. So this is a stacked cast. What's that?
You didn't say Bruce Altman.
Bruce Altman as the lawyer.
He's like the Brian Dennehy of our time.
From Glengarry. In the 90s, Bruce Altman was everywhere too. From Glengarry Glen Ross. He was, I have no business I wish to transact with you. My wife sent in a postcard and we've been getting flooded with calls. That's Bruce Altman. Anyway, James Mangold's second film, and his first one wasn't a blockbuster. Roland, how did this guy get these people? I could not find out a lot about the production of this.
I don't know either.
He wrote and directed his first 4 films, by the way, too.
Yeah. No,
this was his second.
He's a self-made guy, but even Janeane Garofalo, she actually didn't even read the script. As soon as she heard he was directing it, she got on board. And I think that was true with a bunch of the actors. They were so excited about him and his storytelling ability. So, but I do think, like we were talking about, films of the time. This almost had a very rough, mean streets Scorsese feel to it, and a lot of these actors I think were drawn to it. Same thing with Stallone, gaining the weight. I think he had the most write-ups about his transformation and what he was trying to do when this came out. And I think that stuck with me the most back in that day. I actually think he did an admirable job to a point with what he was trying to do. I kind of saw what he was trying to do. I just don't know if he was really allowed to do it or he felt comfortable going beyond certain points because everybody else was doing that gangster feel, that gangster tempo, that gangster dialogue to it. Some people I think were like Michael Rappaport, another one, flawed character, trying to do that gangster New York sort of borough, outer borough, or Hoboken in Jersey. I mean, this was filmed in Edgewater, I think. Yeah. Which is a totally different city now. If you go there now, you wouldn't even recognize the place.
And it's the 90s in New York if they're walking out of Scores.
Yeah, exactly. Scores. Yeah. Right. Before all the shootouts.
Scores was absolutely a creature of the 90s.
I know. Yes. Very much.
When you see Scores, that's like a flash. That's more of a flashback than the Twin Towers almost. Seeing it in the skyline is like Scores.
Definitely.
It's like, oh, God.
So, but I think that was the feel of why people wanted to be part of this ensemble. And it is an ensemble piece. I don't know if anybody really. There are leads, obviously, but to me, it's a very true ensemble piece, and everybody's just punching for their moments. Ray Liotta, a lot of energy. Keitel being what he wants to be. Nick wanted to say something.
No, I was just going to say, because the New York thing, it's I think maybe that was part of the problem. I think the director, as I was reading up about it, he wasn't sure what he wanted to do with it. Like it was part of a gangster movie, part of a cops and robbers, but part of like also a Western. I think he really wanted it to be like High Noon versus, that kind of a blend.
But he did base it on the town he lived in Westchester, right?
And he got really upset, I think, with the recuts and the re-edits. So who knows if we'll ever see what his final vision really was, even though there's a director's cut out there. So continue, Roland. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no. Well, he did call it James Mangold has referred to it as an urban Western.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it in that aspect, it kind of is like the lone sheriff and the cops. They're cops in this film, but they could be the gang of rustlers.
Yeah.
In a Western, right? It's and the sheriff that isn't such a great guy. We've seen that kind of trope in Westerns all the time. So I think if you look at it through the lens of it being an urban Western, and not trying to pin it against a New York gangster film, right? I think that, Eric, do you think that holds up a little bit better? Is that analogy kind of You know, because it's very easy to be, oh, this is Goodfellas light, but it's not. It's not really, because it has nothing to do with gangsters, actually.
I disagree with that.
Okay.
I mean, the cast in this movie for me didn't exceed any expectation for me. De Niro is everybody's just very on. De Niro is De Niro. Yeah. He's playing himself in this film. He's, he doesn't bring anything to this character. I think anybody could have played that role. I think anybody could have played any of these roles, to be honest. They're just very like De Niro with the cadence. I mean, he just doesn't do anything different. Look at what he did in Jackie Brown, which came out the same year. What Tarantino got out of had him there. I could see him playing Freddy in this movie, given that sad sack performance that he gave as Lewis in Jackie Brown,
and then Mo Tilden,
and he killed. And in this, he's just very like today, go to lunch. It's the same performance. And given the fact that he's not in it all that much, I have a problem with a lot of the characters just sort of coming in and out of the film. He sets a lot of things up and then they just kind of disappear in the movie, especially the women.
Is that because you're expecting De Niro to have a larger role in the film?
I'm expecting him, given the cast and the draw. Everybody's everybody's talking about how great this cast is, but I don't feel like this. To me, the cast is distracting to a certain degree because it is a good script. I think it would have benefited more had it been a grittier, more sort of like indie feel. And I think Mangold even said, I think I read that he didn't see any of these actors in this movie. Yeah. I don't know who's responsible for the casting of this film. Is it Harvey Weinstein when he got Miramax to do it? Did he have a say? Who knows? But I feel like it's a distraction because I like the story. It is a very pretty much a straightforward Western type of thing. You know who the bad guys are. Everybody is set. There's very little like moral ambiguity happening in this film. You don't really get into the characters' heads all that much. Everybody's pretty much in their zone, and you know what to expect. Like Harvey Keitel, he's a scumbag from the very beginning. So and nothing in his performance, nothing in this film tells me anything more than he's just a bad guy. You don't. Is there a reason why he's doing the things that he's doing? I don't get that in this film. It's very pretty much straightforward. And then by the end of the film, it feels like a Stallone movie to me because everybody's out of it. Everybody, all of a sudden, they just turn their backs on him. The Janine Garofalo, she's there. You think that she's going to be like sitting on his shoulder the whole time. Wake the fuck up. What are you doing? Why are you letting this happen? That didn't happen. She, you barely see her, and then she's packing up to go back upstate. And I'm like, I don't care. Bye. It's like what, she just turns her back on him, and he's just left alone, walking tall. And then for me, it just became a Stallone movie by the end of it. So that's just, my opinion. But
Christy, let's move over to Christy, and then we'll go back to I think Roland.
I think to Roland's point before, it's an ensemble piece, right? So I'm not going to compare it to Pulp Fiction, but it has that where you have multiple different characters and no one's really the star, and there's so much going on, and I think it's there's some reality to it. Janine Garofalo's character in real life would probably, if she figured out that the mafia is involved with the cops, now she works for the sheriff's department. Who gives a fuck? Like she's trying to catch speeders and she can't pull anyone over. She can't do her job. I'd leave too. Like, I'm going to die for this job. Like, she's not looking to be the heroine. You want too much. You're expecting too much from her.
There you go.
That's not what I got from her opening scene. When she's in the car, you expect her to be that pain in the ass to Stallone, to be on him the whole time, but the fact that she's barely in the movie.
Well, also,
I would agree with you. I would agree with you, Christy, if there was more for her to chew on in this movie. And I feel like
it's 1997.
There's a lot of
so let's take that into because we're looking at it from 2023 right now. It's 1997. So there's five main women in this. None of them likable except for Monica. I think really none of them are redeemable women. They're all kind of shits. If you look at it.
Yeah, that's true.
So
all of them.
except for Monica, who's in it briefly and then gets torched. So it's
literally, jeez, wow.
But so I think it just plays
Wasn't she a crackhead
well.
too?
Hey,
Yeah.
Come on.
You got a problem with
Lifestyle
trying to
choice.
help a girl
Lifestyle
out.
choice.
You can't call that redeeming.
Well,
If she sells to you, it is.
She seems nicer than the others. But yeah.
So Jerry, do you agree with Eric? I mean, what were you kind of said that you were excited and I want to do this episode. Then you watched it. So what happened?
I think the biggest part of it was,
besides Murray and the pool. But explain that. Why was that a problem for you?
Because Jerry doesn't like.
I mean, given the whole
swim.
Given the whole, all the actors and stuff, and I'm not even like a huge movie buff, I think, to the level of you guys, but even I could tell that's a really good cast coming at me. And it was, I mean, as we broached before with Freddie, I mean, I get what he's trying to do, but I get the feeling, the way he played it was like a little kid that you gave a badge to and everyone would pretend he's a cop. Like, even that wasn't convincing. Mm-hmm. And the way he tried to end it, by one of my favorite parts of that was when De Niro, told him he blew it. Yeah. Because he came in thinking he's going to save it. And I'm like, no, you're as crappy as the rest of it. I think most of it was the acting, just none of it was convincing. They just kind of read the lines to me. And I just didn't get anything from it. In the shootout at the end, the way the three bad guys died was the worst dying. Like, I believed Robert Patrick as the T-1000 more than I believed him as the cop getting shot. Yeah. And it just plus the other thing was, these guys are all in it and they're, they have all these scams going. The plan with Superboy was just, how did they ever think any of that was going to work? Like, hiding him, or even, starting with the gun, then hiding him. Like, there's no way that was like, these guys have been running scams all the time, and this is the best thing they came up with.
So, all right. So let me go, before I go to Roland, that was the whole thing, is that phone call where Harvey Keitel didn't really want to kill Superboy, right? Because this whole story, just to get people that never saw this, basically there's a rookie cop who saved a lot of children in a house fire. He's lionized in the NYPD, kills some people by accident, that were innocent, that didn't really provoke anything, but he thought he was drinking, his tire blew out. So they set it up that he jumps off the George Washington Bridge, but there's no body. So no one believes this story. So basically the story is about him, about that character and what happens to him. And then also Freddie's, Stallone's involvement in it. Now, Jerry, to your point, yeah, they didn't do a very good job of hiding him, or he didn't do a good job of hiding himself. But that scene at the end at the party where Harvey Keitel's like, well, this is my sister-in-law's kid. Like, he was saying, like, is there any way we can get around having to kill this kid? Like,
he was
like, adopted. So I don't think I think the plan was get him off the bridge, and then we'll kind of figure, like, we don't know how this is going to shake out, so we'll have to figure it out.
But that was my problem. Like, even the thought of getting him off the bridge was not a good idea.
Like Dr. Evil style, like villains. These are just cops on the take.
But if they're good cops, they're going to think that this is not going to work. Like, that's where I started to lose it.
If they're good cops, they know how to hide people that just killed somebody?
No, they would have not come up with that idea. I mean, to suddenly be like,
3 seconds.
Well, first of all, when Robert Patrick
get out of my house.
Oh, look at this, I found the gun. And then I was like, okay,
it was bad, but that's the whole point with the ambulance drivers. Like, this is bullshit. Like, you guys are so bad. You guys are so bad at being bad, right? It's like, this is, they're calling it out to their face. That Paul Calderon's character was like, you're so full of it. Like, what are you doing? He's like, what are you doing, man? Like,
that's where they were losing.
He was one of the best parts of the movie for me. Those actors that why weren't they more prevalent in this film? why didn't they? He casted John Spencer, and he's like nobody in this movie. He should have played Mo. He would have been perfect as Mo, because given the amount of time that character is on, he would have made a perfect Mo.
Actually,
because Spencer,
I don't like how John Spencer pulls his gun out at the end, like where he's like.
Yes, that was another part of the acting.
He does a big pull.
What are they doing?
But I love John Spencer.
But that's my point. But that's my point about the casting in this movie. Is like he casted both these powerhouse actors to play these small roles. They were almost like supporting roles. And then you got these great character actors and then really not doing anything. It would have. I think it would have been better had these people been pushed forward. They're hungrier. People are looking to prove themselves at that time. A lot of great actors in the 90s. I just feel like all of these performances were very on point. Keitel is Keitel. De Niro is De Niro. I didn't see any. I saw a lot of Jimmy Conway in De Niro's performance.
Really?
I'm sorry.
I didn't get any of that.
I didn't get any of that. If anything, I got
just the way he talks, the way he acts, the way he.
No, I got king of comedy, actually.
He's very gangster in this movie. He's very.
I didn't get any of that.
Let
me throw it over to Nick before I go to Roland and then Nick.
I think to your point, Eric, there's no cohesion with, for me at least, a lot of the performances. Like you're saying, there are some people just being themselves. And I think they were allowed to be themselves. I think that's also a problem. I think with a director who's new like this is overwhelmed by Harvey Keitel, by De Niro. He's like, bro, he's
not going to tell these guys what to do.
So they're going to do it the way they want to do it.
No,
and then you have people taking chances. Like a Stallone and some of the character actors, but they're so invested in that chance they're taking that to me the cohesion sort of gets lost in the story. Like Stallone in it, he looks like a child, like what Jerry's saying. I mean, he sounds to me like a friggin' child, yet he's obviously 40 years old. But he sounds like a child. Like he would never have. It wasn't a deaf ear that didn't let him become a cop. It was him.
You get the impression that you get the impression that he's slow-witted.
Yeah, no, he's definitely
like
slow
in that sense. So, but he's trying to play up the deaf factor, I guess.
So it's just weird to me. But it's too much.
I don't think he's slow. Slow in his mannerisms, but he's not slow. He's just very, very easy. He's very easily manipulated, right? Because he's got hero worship. He wants to be a cop, so
he's defeated.
But that's a very immature thing, though.
It is. Yeah, because even De Niro says that you might be law enforcement, but you're not a cop, and he really drives it home to him that you're pretending to be a policeman, right? You make sure that the kittens get out of the trees, and that's pretty much all you do. Let me get to Nick because he's going to throw me a lifeline.
I am going to throw you a little bit. I mean, good points by all. I mean, to Eric's point about the casting, I agree. There's a lot of characters here that I think could have been combined into one and maybe pushed forward that way. And I think that's part of the challenge. It's like you see these faces, and they unlike Tombstone. Tombstone, for example, had that same kind of all-star cast, but each one scene had like a really pivotal moment, and they all played a role. In this one, there's some interchangeable stuff, and I think it felt like they really wanted to throw everybody in. But I disagree in the sense of performances. I think they're bringing their A game to the sense of they're doing what they know best. Like this is what Harvey Keitel does. This is what Robert De Niro does, right? And maybe a better director may have been able to like pull them back or pulled out the best performances out of them. But for what it was, I really liked it. I thought the suspension of disbelief was great. I thought the Stallone character, to Christy's point, I think she said defeated at one point. He's depressed. He's really, from the beginning, I didn't see a child. I saw a guy who's defeated, like Christy said, and depressed.
Yeah.
Much nicer than I
his life changed when he saved her life, not just losing his ear, but losing the girl, and then he, whatever ambitions he had is probably lost. So I think there was that great scene when he says if it happened today, he wouldn't have jumped into the water. And not that he didn't want to save her, but I think he would have sat back and been like, is that the right thing to do? And that's what he's doing, looking around at everything that's happening. He's seeing the corruption. Right. But, but the cops that he sees now, they're corrupt, So I think to that regard, that's my take on it. So good points by all, but I lean more with Dean and Christy, and I enjoyed it. I thought,
honestly, I think it's Stallone's best performance, and you guys can rake me.
I don't know,
for it. There's
you are dead to me,
subtleties.
Christy.
Get out of my
I thought
house.
he was
Get out of my house.
Honestly, to me, he's Rocky with a badge.
No, the only time I got Rocky was when he got shot and he's screaming at the end. That's the only time I thought of Rocky. But there's subtleties. There's these little minute things he does. I thought the fact when I read that this film hurt his career afterwards, he thought it was going to help him. It was kind of like how I felt about Casablanca when I found out everyone, hated it when they were making it. It's like, it broke my heart because I thought he was really good in it. I didn't get the impression like Roland did that he was maybe on the short bus. I was like, this guy's broke.
I'm on that bus.
You actually are on that bus. I just felt like I said, he's just so broken and he's so depressed. I mean, look how much alcohol he's drinking. He's just smoking. I mean, you could smell, when I'm watching this movie, I can smell the alcohol and cigarettes. And that's just depressing in of itself. This guy's he's a sheriff in freaking Copland. I mean, it's.
He's supposed to be setting an example.
Yeah.
And
let me talk to Eric's point about the cast and how they play their roles. Again, if you look at this from the standpoint of a Western, you need to know who's wearing the black hats, right? In Westerns,
Right, I totally agree.
So you're going to get Keitel as he's going to be a bad, you need to know that he's a black hat guy. You need to know that Robert Patrick are black hats. If you look at it that way and you kind of boil it down to that type of movie genre, it makes a lot more sense that, these guys are not going to be deep psychological characters. These are just cops on the take. And then
that's what that's what I was expecting.
Yeah.
I didn't see it as, I wasn't looking for a Western. I was necessarily, I was looking for like a Serpico, or, something of that vein where it's just,
and then
a little bit more complex, but it was just very, the simplicity of the script is great, but given the cast, for me, it kind of takes me out of it because they're acting exactly as
you're expecting more.
I'm expecting a little bit more of the realism, the grittiness of a great character actor bringing everything they have to these roles. These guys didn't have to work hard to do what they did. Keitel didn't have to really, they know what they're doing right from the get-go. So they came in and they just kind of here it is, and they didn't do anything really that drastically different.
So you feel like they called it in.
Yeah, but you know what? That was half the fun, is just seeing Harvey Keitel be in a comfortable role.
That's my point. Yes, it's a very, very likable movie for that reason. So you could just of course you're gonna like that.
Watching him spar with De Niro is just great. It's great stuff. Now to Freddie about what his role, and Keitel says it at the end. Your plan is the plan of a boy. And that's how they look at him. They look at him. He's looked at as he might be looked at. They might look at him as a simpleton, right? Because they grossly underestimate him, right? Some of the decisions he makes, like to keep Superboy in the jail overnight. It's again, if you look at it from a Western, that's what they would do. The sheriff would be holed up in this one horse town until help came. So you have to if you position this in the Western genre, it makes a lot of sense. When it gets out of that, it doesn't make sense of, why wouldn't you just take him now into the city? But that's not the sandbox we're playing in is in one of these older time movies where the good guy is going to stand off against all the bad guys. So, Christy?
Yeah,
Nick was raising his hand.
Nick had his hand up next.
I was going to say with defending Sly's character, because it's you see him evolve though. At the beginning, you think he's maybe simple, but then at the end, you see he's a great targetsman. Like he can shoot the bullseye, 5 times. He starts once he gets his motivation back. He goes in and he realizes that Figgy set fire himself, like it was an arson. So you see he's not as dumb as he looked, and he's not as this kind of like bumbling kind of character. Towards the end, he's becoming that. Almost.
I think because he believed it, because he was kind of brainwashed that's all he was, right, and that he wasn't anything more than that. Like even that famous line with you deaf fuck, I hope that cupcake makes a mess. Like nobody thinks that he can do it because he hasn't proved otherwise. So it's not like he's a he's a great sleuth or a great detective. He just hasn't ever tried to put those skills to use because he served his purpose within Copland.
But does he just have blinders on?
No,
he's kind of a joke.
He's a broken man, and he's literally the sheriff of a place where it's Copland. Like it's just
they make him feel important because they tell him how great he is, but they're laughing behind his back.
They make fun of him when he goes and he goes to Ray's house and he's talking to his wife, who's screwing Joey. And he walks away. He's like, about garbage. He's like, oh, real. Like Ray makes fun of him. Like I forgot exactly what he said, but they put him down in his face. Like he's just. I mean, imagine trying to police real police. Like it just doesn't seem like
they did catch the arrogance. That's your point. They did grab that. Definitely in the story.
And so again, like Nick is saying, I don't think I think he's a lot smart. Like I think he is smart. Like even when he touches the side of the bag and he can smell the resin from the bomb, and which I think makes him go to the house after he sees the check. But he's not stupid. He's scared. He's scared. He's never been given the opportunity. It's just I think you're underestimating how hard of a role that probably was for Stallone to play and to bring this across. And
it is one of my favorite characters that he's played. I'll be honest.
I'm telling you, I think it's his best role. I honestly,
I thought it was. We're gonna go on the defense a little bit. I thought it was a very nuanced performance from him because he could be very Stallone, and he wasn't. He spoke in normal tones, very deliberate. He skirted that line between is he the village idiot, or is he just a guy that just taking his time and he's in no rush to go anywhere because he's not going because he's going nowhere.
He's got nothing to do.
Sheriff. They make him feel important on Sundays or when there's a parade, and they kind of placate him because they know that they've got basically this guy that wants to be a cop, and if they make him feel like one, let him hang out in the bar and do this, he's going to go along until he starts to have that realization, right? And then he's like, yeah, this is and I thought it was a very nuanced performance then, and watching it again, I still, for Stallone, it's a very, after role of hyper action and being the guy that does everything. This, like Christy said, a very flawed man. In the director's cut, you get a lot more of the subtext of the relationship, with the girl that he saved in the theatrical version. That it's not delved into as deep, but those are some great moments where he's like, all the, how come you never got married? And it might sound hokey, but all the good girls.
That was a heartbreaking scene.
It is.
But what happened? But what happened after that?
It's like not everything's going to get tied up. Yeah, it's like the end of Shawshank. If you're right, when Morgan Freeman drives away, we don't know. Like all we know is that things have changed in Garrison after this, right? Because everything has changed in Garrison because of this guy that they underestimate. And I think that's what everything else is kind of window dressing as far as, you could, and, to Eric and Jerry and maybe Rollins that, you could argue that the cast is overstacked, right? I'd rather have a cast overstacked like this and not have to worry about someone wrecking the movie that doesn't fit. Put De Niro in a small role. He'll kill it. He'll slay it. Roland, what do you got?
I still, to me, it's, and I get everyone's point. I get the Western point. I get Stallone's move to being a subtle performance and trying to really bring stuff. I just think, to Nick's point, maybe it needed to be pulled in a little bit so they could expand it more. And I think it would have felt a little bit more cohesive at that point. There's just moments where everyone's at 60 and that's it. Like every moment is 60. And cop culture is heavily anchored on pensions and the fear of losing that pension. And that, I wish they delved into that, because that's the biggest fear. It's not about being caught doing anything illegal. Is this guy's pension's lost.
Yeah.
And
I don't think they were worried about it because they were they were so deep in with the mob that
but 20 no, they don't care.
They probably felt like, well, yeah, and they felt untouchable, right? They really
cops
felt like they
have very deep pockets and very short arms.
Yeah, but they felt like that was the whole point of Copland. Is like they felt like they could do anything because they were, because they were so
I get that,
protected.
and it's been. I actually worked for the Academy. I did work for the Academy a few years ago, for like 3-4 years, and watching that culture and watching them talk, it's very interesting. It's very much. It's actually more on the Stallone side of like, listen, just calm down.
Yeah.
Than anybody else's side. There's no rage. It's like
I would hope so.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about more so than like if you ask them a question, go, I don't know what you're talking about. They're not directly involved. They step away.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's the way.
I just wish there was something more to a lot of the stuff that he was seemingly building up in the first half of the film. All these subplots and slice of life things like Pete Berg having this somewhat abusive relationship with Annabella Sciorra, and then you end up find out that she's the one that hit him upside the head. Because it's like, twist. So who's doing the abusing? Yeah. And I thought that was really interesting, but then it just kind of
there was a lot of stuff, and then it turned into Rambo at the end.
Right. Yeah,
but I found that awfully convenient that scene just happened out of nowhere. That these guys, he's on the rooftop with these guys, and how convenient that Keitel found his inn to do what he had to do there.
There's a lot of crime in Manhattan, Eric.
That's why.
But it just happened. Things just happened so quickly.
That's why it's a movie.
It just shifts from one thing to another. Too many things going on, and too many characters.
No, there's a lot going.
A lot of these characters,
it moves at a breakneck speed, right? And
right
for either you're going to like that or it's going to create tension. For me, that creates tension of just like if you stop and stop at every scene and question it, you're not going to get through this film. But if you just kind of take the film as, again, I have to keep pointing you in the direction of a Western. It matches perfectly with that the really bad guys do really bad things and they let all this stuff happen. And, the one good guy that's going to stand alone against it. And maybe that's Rambo at the end. It's not really though. Cause he gets pretty messed up. And then of course you have the great Ray Liotta, who's got one of the great solo scenes when he's driving.
Yeah, nobody's brought him up yet, but he's the MVP for me.
He's like, will you shut up? Like when he's driving and he's just having that inner conflict. I don't need you. I don't need this town. I don't need that town. I'm taking my money and I'm leaving. And he just and you thought, okay, another one. To Eric's point, another one gone, right? Another one that just leaves. But he has that crisis of conscience, on the turnpike, Roland.
And he's like Han Solo. He literally turns around and
right. I mean, that was again. That was like the side. That was like the deputy. Even the deputy didn't want to stay. Right. He's like, oh, my wife doesn't want me to stay. Well,
he was the only one that was really on Freddy's side the whole time. He's the guy that really was. And I feel like they were almost the same character in the sense that they were going through the same kind of thing. Mm-hmm. He had his baggage. Which, that whole bit about his partner, they didn't go into a lot of detail about that, but that there was something there. But
there was a lot of bitterness there and a lot of animosity.
But he could have been Freddy, though. I mean, Ray Liotta could have played the part of Freddy. Why is there another character?
Actually, interesting, Eric. I'm almost positive I read that they each wanted to play the other's part. That Ray Liotta wanted to play
Freddy.
Probably
I think better.
They wanted to give it to Gary Sinise, I hear too. Like he was in the running
for
Freddy, which
that would have been interesting.
Because if you see that, like in Apollo 13 or even Forrest Gump, where he can do that depressed state, right? We've seen that from him. So
but I think seeing it from Stallone is really what the shocker is, because you're expecting. You're under arrest, pal. And
but when was the last time anybody saw the original Rocky?
I've seen it a few times.
Right. I'm not talking about Rocky 3. I'm not talking about
the original Rocky.
Yeah. Right.
I'm not talking about the action-packed,
franchise.
But
that was like
entries.
20 years previous to that, and he's changed
you're talking new. You want to talk nuanced, sad sack performance, and the same, like to Christie's point, he was just as compelling in that film, perhaps even more so. but he always kept a positive attitude about stuff, right? So in a way, obviously Rocky's a lot more likable. You're always on his side, but Freddy, it's just kind of like,
yeah, I don't know if I really like.
I'm waiting.
I'm
waiting. Yeah, I'm waiting for something to.
You know what I'm
Ray
surprised?
Liotta go, even though Ray Liotta was a killer. So conscious only went so far.
Yeah.
You guys bring up Jimmy Conway.
So he has a gray hat on.
Yeah, well, everybody does. Most of them do have gray hats.
When you're not going to compare Ray Liotta to his character in Goodfellas. That I got when he's all coked up.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I saw that.
Yeah, well, there's even the shot that was like right from. I mean, it's the same shot that the camera like zooming in on when he's sitting at the bar with Fred. That was right out of Goodfellas. Yeah. You can see, Henry Hill right there. The way he, put that shot in.
And that's not to take away from Ray Liotta's performance, because I think Ray Liotta was phenomenal in this.
What's that?
He was amazing.
He was.
I said that was not to take away from Ray Liotta's performance.
Yeah, he did a great performance, but it was played definitely to the Goodfellas.
Yeah, like
I agree.
He upped. Yeah, like that. Yeah. That I didn't get Jimmy Conway from De Niro, but I totally.
Well, I'm talking about the way De Niro delivers. The way he delivers his lines. It's that same.
No, he reminded me of King of Comedy.
Today, but it's always like, look at me, go to lunch, it's the same.
Yeah, but he was the polar opposite of Neil McCauley that he had just done in Heat. He totally did not look like Neil McCauley, totally did not act like him. So.
No, and that was a nuanced performance. Yeah. Neil McCauley. See, but that's my point. He's got range. Here, he wasn't really trying to do anything.
I disagree.
Because he didn't need to.
Nick, I'm with you
because. If I may flash
whatever Nick says.
Yeah, let me flash back to Heat since we bring up Heat. Because Al Pacino, you talk about overacting in that. Like that's where I hated Al Pacino's performance.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to interrupt.
But listen,
did you just do Saturday Night Live? No,
Christy.
He did Saturday Night Fever impersonation. The way he said Al Pacino.
Al Pacino. But listen.
Al Pacino.
There you go.
But in this case, I think De Niro actually played it well, because all that stuff when he's like throwing the papers around, and then when he's yelling at Stallone's character Freddy, that was an act. That was him putting on an act in front of everybody. He's like we've been shut down. We can't do anything. And then trying to get Freddy to kind of be like, look, there's nothing. What do you got for me? I need evidence. They shut us down. Mm-hmm. You come here and just tell me I can't do anything. So if he stirs things up, so that's why he pushed him. Because at first I was like, he's been telling Freddy to go and do something. And now Freddy's here. So why is he making him go out the door? And I'm like, he's playing him.
He's classic line. Yeah. Classic line. I'm glad to have wakened you from your slumber. But my hands are tied. My hands are tied. You shut me down.
But that's it exactly. Yeah, Nick. That's it. Exactly.
You shut me down. Doing. I can't. My hands are tied.
Yeah.
Can we just?
So you're saying that was all reverse psychology.
It was. Freddy? It totally was.
Oh, absolutely.
100%.
No, because when Freddy leaves, when Freddy leaves the office, De Niro, let's see what he does with
Cupcake
that.
makes a mess of
this. Totally. Yeah, he knew what he was doing.
We got a case because he totally went serious. If that Cupcake makes a mess of this, we got a case again.
Can we talk about this?
He totally went into like Nick said, he was he's playing it up like Pacino did in Heat, right?
I am not saying that he's. I am not for any way, shape, or form saying that he's bad. Nobody is bad in this film. It's just I just don't.
I got you.
I feel like they could have done something a little bit different in just the way they brought And the point is that they didn't have to, because they it wasn't really much of a leap, for these characters because they're not in it as much. Even Keitel's character, there are good stretches of time where you don't see him. And even when you do, he says very little, right? In the beginning of the movie, like towards the middle, he's got the presence, but he doesn't speak a lot. He doesn't have a lot of lines. And then after Pete Berg falls to, his death, that's when he starts coming in with the lines, by the very end. He is the villain. He is, like Dean pointed out, he's the guy with the black hat. But it's just saying that I just would have liked to have seen it. It would have been interesting to see other people playing these parts and see what the movie would have been like then. Had it, it just felt too familiar, too parts of it kind of, I'm paying attention to Robert De Niro do his thing. I might have been missing some of the things that he was saying, some of the nuances of the story or getting missed because people are too busy paying attention to these these actors who they've seen in all these other great films. So
cool. All right,
that's really my point.
All right, let's kick it over to Christy and then Roland. We got some hands up. Hands up, baby,
so Eric,
hands up.
Do you think?
Give me your heart.
Actually,
give
two
me
things.
your heart.
Okay, you have to shut up.
I thought we were at a wedding.
Well, those people just got divorced after they heard this.
Wow. Okay.
Two things. One is does anyone want to bring up?
I thought you were flipping this off. I swear to God.
We do that in England.
That's how she does it.
That's in England.
Briefly, because we were talking about the scene where Freddie comes in with De Niro and he's having lunch. What New York City deli did they go to? Because
those are some thin sandwiches.
Anyone who's had a New York City deli. No, because he's like, this place never gives you enough napkins.
Yeah, they never give you. So what kind of? He was more upset about no napkins as opposed to no meat.
They give half. Anytime you've had a sandwich from a New York deli, you have to give half of the meat away to a country because it's too much. But anyway, so Eric,
well, I think that's the one thing I think that was De Niro's.
Yes, he added that the lunch
idea.
Yeah.
He added that. He improvised that whole lunch, the sandwich. That whole bit was awful. So yeah.
So do you think that you're talking about Harvey Keitel and he's in it, but he's not in it? A couple of lines here, a couple of lines there, and you wanted more. These actors, and I think Dean said, what was the budget? 15 million.
15 million.
All worked for scale. Now, do you think
they gave you that?
No, they didn't. No, they didn't.
Well, they gave the scale.
Did I tell you to leave my house?
No, I see where Christy's going with this question, but the point was that
do you think
everybody was willing because. Well, no, I don't think so because everybody wanted to do it.
Yeah, but
no, they like this was such a great script. There was so much talk about this being such a tremendous script, and everybody was on. We got to do this movie, and then they did it, and I feel like, okay, I see a very
so then
simple story here. I see a lot of these great actors in it, but I don't see.
So then, do you?
I see a lot of people coming and going, and it's just very. It doesn't. It's very confusing as to what it's trying to be.
So do you think
and
they
I don't
came
see
in
the sort of the greatness?
So then, do you think it's the opposite? They came in and said, "Yeah, I'm working for scale, but I want to help this Mangold guy, and I'm going to give him my De Niro."
It's a definite coup for Mangold. It's a shot in the arm for Mangold for sure.
Giving them these performances that were, quote unquote, maybe expected from previous performances. Is that what you think might have happened?
Yeah, I think so. Because I like I said, like we pointed out before, Mangold wasn't going to tell De Niro what to do. It's only his second movie. Who the hell is this guy? But we'll help you out.
Yeah.
But we're gonna, but we're not gonna give you, they didn't have to. Like I said, they didn't have to work hard in this thing. It wasn't like they came in and it was such a different thing. Like I see De Niro's playing. They're just very straight on. They're just all on, and to me that was. It shouldn't be anything wrong with it, but to me, there was, because they were too on for my taste. It was like I wanted something, I was expecting something a little more, and I didn't get it. I got a really great, solid cop thriller, which is what I got. It's it's pretty much it's an easy watch. It's I don't dislike the film, but I want more from it. Given the fact that is it a Goodfellas? No. Is it a Serpico? No. Is it a Departed? No. Is it, those movies really were, to me, at a higher level.
Got it.
In the sense of the style of the what the actors brought to it, so there was and the psychological aspects too of what was going on too. Right. But anyway,
kick it over to Roland. What you got?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, it definitely, for me at least, it picks up once everything starts falling apart. I think that's where the film really gets its legs. For me, when everything's, like you said, like Eric's saying, or even Jerry's saying, what a stupid plan. But, they think it's going to work because things have worked. I think it sort of gets its legs for me once things really start falling apart and, the castle's crumbling. Probably the other thing, and I've mentioned this on other podcasts, is you have a Scorsese film and they're very particular about sound design. The shots, all the tools they have to make a great film, to make that great rhythm and tempo. I think some of that this director was learning still at this point.
Yeah,
so the sound is very weak
as well.
Sound design is very weak. Some of the shots I probably wouldn't have done. They're a little bit plain and flat. And looking at that, I definitely get the Western feel, especially like when he's talking to those kids in the street. Hey, get out of here! Don't bother this kid anymore. He's playing a good cop essentially for everybody and not going after anybody. But definitely, I think the production value. I'm looking at his resume. He's doing the next Indiana Jones, and he did Logan, which is one of my freaking favorite. That's one of my top 10.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is
he's learned.
This was his second film in, and I'm still gonna advocate that this, with the star power you have, there's enough to chew on for everybody. I think that there's plenty to go around. That I don't need a full bodied De Niro.
Right.
I'll take 75% of De Niro in this film, because that's all this film needs is 75% De Niro, because it's not a De Niro film. Right, he basically has a glorified cameo.
The thing is, I think he gave 100% De Niro when he needed to do 75.
Yeah, but even so, right?
That being said, take these guys out of the movie. Does it just become another Sylvester Stallone film?
No, because he's playing.
You say that
he's playing some. He's playing.
You say that you don't need a full on. They're glorified cameos, but yes, that's.
But meaning that I'll take an overstacked cast like this any day, because I know what I'm going to get. I don't need to be guessing. For a movie like this, you want to know who the bad guys are, and I don't want to guess if some new actor is going to try and give some different portrayal and put a different spin. No, I need to know who the black hats are. Right. I want the bad guys need to be bad. Right. And we need to see it, but Freddy doesn't. That's the whole point, is these guys are bad. And Freddy is just, he's enamored with them. It's hero worship. It's whatever it is. And he just doesn't see it, but we see it. We know it. They're so bad at it. Like again, to Jerry's point in the beginning with the gun, right? They're not, it's not that they're the Keystone cops. They're just bad. They're just dirty cops. It doesn't mean they're criminal masterminds. Right, Jerry? Hang on, Christy.
Yeah.
Oh,
right,
going to me?
Yeah, going to you. Your name's Jerry.
Yes, it is. I think I figured I think my biggest issue comes from, I think I'm the simpleton here. I like my Stallone.
Freddie. Okay, Freddie.
Up and be an act. I could not see him being, I mean, you guys have put all these layers on him.
Who, Freddie?
I just can't see it on Freddie.
Okay.
I think if there was a different Freddie, someone not Stallone, someone that I didn't expect to end the movie as he did, I could probably take it. I think it all started with him. I just could not.
So you think it was miscast? You think it was a miscast right there?
I could not get the way he was playing, and that's probably what radiated into everything else. Because I was so focused on him, I couldn't buy him in that role.
Interesting. Nick?
You saying that, Jerry, kind of makes me understand what you were saying about the cast before. Because I'm looking at this movie and I'm seeing like great performances in the sense of these actors really giving it their all, in the sense that it's what they do best. So I could see them getting the script as an actor. When I read a line for the first time before we get any direction, I'm playing it in my head how I would play it. And then you have a good director who's going to like pull it back or make you go higher or make you, and I don't think they got that. Stallone might have gotten that. And I have a feeling that Stallone went into this movie thinking one thing, and everybody else maybe went into it thinking this is going to be that kind of gangster style that we all do well. This is the role we want. We're going to fit our little niche and make it work. And maybe that's why he hated it afterwards and regretted it, because maybe he expected this to be like the moment where people like pat him on the back and like, you're not an action star, you're an actor.
The turning point.
How he started out, And I look back at his comments too, and like he never knocks the director. Like in his comments, he always praises him. And I have a feeling that they work together, and maybe it does feel maybe like a disconnect between those two. So Jerry, I see your point in that regard. You're wrong. You're wrong. But I see your point.
You deaf bastard.
Nick is ever the diplomat. He is so kind, even when he's torching you. He's just so nice. He does it so nicely.
And then he does. He's very good at it.
Then he turns. You turn around and
you're insulted right now.
Jerry, you're feeling pretty good about that, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty good about what he's wrong tonight. I'm good with that.
Nick. Jerry's like, yeah, Nick, you're right. Actually,
I am totally wrong.
I was wrong about myself. Christy, what do you got?
I think Jerry's got his head up his ass. But other than
okay. Oh man, that's a different film. That's the human caterpillar.
We keep touching on it, and Dean, you were touching on it.
Thank you, Roland.
Again, with it's an ensemble, and you see all these heavy hitters. Let's also not forget this was 1997, and maybe it was Pulp Fiction that started, or Reservoir Dogs, but maybe Quentin Tarantino. But we were in a decade of ensemble movies: L.A. Confidential, Usual Suspects.
Oh yeah,
and Mangold. Again, we touched on this. It was his second film, maybe a little bit out of his depth. Here on being able to manage this major cast, but I think we're just. I think some of you are just expecting too much. Like you're just not.
But aren't those the guys you expected from?
But they gave me what I wanted. Like I don't know what you want. Like
you weren't expecting anything.
I don't know what you wanted from
Christy. I had Jerry saying, "Nick, you're right. I was wrong," and now you're bringing him back. What's going on here?
I've known Jerry.
Nick, you need to insult me again. I think you need to tell me I'm wrong again.
Jerry's like, turn this ship around. We're heading back.
Like I don't know. Like what was so bad about, like, you're so down on Stallone's performance. It's like, what did you want him to be Rocky in this? Like, what did you want?
Well, I told you, I obviously am of the ilk that Stallone should be blowing crap up and fighting everybody. Like I do. The story wasn't bad, but I think it all radiates from I could not buy him in that role.
But why?
He was just because just the way, I mean, I guess I can't stand, I mean, this is where I think maybe if someone else was in it, I can't stand that type of person that just gets walked over by everybody. I mean, just the first scene with Garofalo when, they are treating her like crap. And I know this was 97, and even then that was looked upon it like as bad, but he was just like, oh, is this a new car? It looks good, and leaves. And I know he's just defeated or if you want to say he's given up, but like to me, like people like that are just, I almost side more with at least what you're getting with the guys in the black hats.
Mm-hmm.
With Freddie. He was all, letting them get by because he wants to be them. He wants to be their friend.
So you have a problem with the actual
when it starts to go bad and he can't understand, even though if you're saying that it was reverse psychology, Freddie doesn't get that, but he can't understand why don't you want to help me? I'm doing what you said. Because now they shut it. The mayor shut down the case, and Freddie has to freaking he doesn't get that in his head that you didn't have the cojones to stand up when we had a chance, and now we can't do anything. And he just did a lot of did he really think he'd go to One Police Plaza and no one would notice him? I just think. It's not as deep as
so leave Stallone out.
No, it's not a deep film. I'm not saying that this is.
You don't like the character
just saying,
of Freddie.
I think it dawned on me. A different actor probably would have made that.
No, you don't like the character, and you need to admit that now.
I don't like that type of character, but a different actor probably could have portrayed that because I am going in with the bias of. I like Stallone as Rambo and Rocky and everything he presents now. So that is a bias on me, that where you guys could see Stallone's an actor. I see Stallone as he's the action hero.
That's probably what a lot of people had a problem with is someone who, just like Schwarzenegger, right? Like all of a sudden he does Kindergarten Cop, and he probably took the right way to do it. He did something so extreme, a big time comedy, that people, he was almost making fun of himself, where this was Stallone trying to pivot into something a little more serious, and people don't know how to, if you see the poster, you see Stallone and he's in the front, and you think it's a Stallone film because you just saw Daylight and you just saw a Cliffhanger. right? So if you go into it expecting that, either you're going to be disappointed or you're not going to know what to make of the film.
But then actors would never step out of their comfort zone, and that's an unrealistic and unfair.
Well, I think he was Stallone by the end.
By the end, the point is, by the end of it, he is the action star because he blows everybody away.
He's first blood,
so he takes care of business as he usually does.
Jerry, if he tied a bandana around his head, would you like
change
it better?
Their sound. Band will change its sound, and you'll be like, I love these guys when they started, and now they're like, people loved Smash Mouth when they were a punk band.
Smash Mouth.
People didn't understand that. They got popular when they did pop music, and then when people would hear their punk stuff, they were like, "What is this crap?"
Obviously, you saw the mashup of Smash Mouth and Sugar Ray, and those were your two bands. That's fine.
I can't believe we're at the point where we're equating Copland to Smash Mouth. That's how far we've fallen in this episode.
I understand your point of actors want to test themselves. I get that, and it does work. And I'm sure there's instances where I've seen that it worked. But like Stallone had, and even things you see now, like it's just like Dean said, you know what you're getting when you walk into that. And I guess rewatching it, I guess I lost a lot of that, and it just didn't translate for me.
Stallone probably agrees with you. I mean, that's in hindsight. He probably thinks he was miscast in it. He probably thinks he shouldn't have done it, right? So that's
I hope
a sad
not.
thing.
I hope
sad
not.
state.
Jerry, you're just a Stallone apologist.
No, Jerry was just smart.
Right. So I think we need to wind this up. I think this is probably one of the most spirited and divided episodes we've ever had, Eric. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Right? I think this was like Heat was a gang up on Nick. Nick.
Yeah, I thought I was going to take all the heat for this
3-3.
but
in Heat, Nick was like Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. 2 men enter and 1 man leaves. He was like Russell Crowe in Gladiator. But this one was a little more equally matched. So I'm not going to bother asking if there were any favorite scenes.
May I? May I?
For those that are interested, go ahead.
And I think it ties up to what we were saying. I love the scene where he's right, that pivoting moment when he's about to kind of say, he's looking at all the evidence, and then the deputy Bill says, not everybody in Garrison is a murderer, right?
Yeah.
And he says something like, "No, they just close their eyes and look the other way, just like I've been doing all." I love that line. I love that scene. It's understated, but it's like that's the moment when he's like, it explains what he was before that scene, everything he was doing, and now what he's about to become. Because he's like, enough. I'm opening my eyes, and so I love that scene, and I think that kind of sums up the movie right there.
Cool. I'm just going to make one observation about the film that I noticed upon watching it this time. If you pay attention to the beginning of the film, I didn't realize it was so. It probably beat you over the head, but I didn't realize the parallels where Superboy leaves a party drunk, has an accident, gets a bloody nose. Freddy is at a bar, leaves drunk, has a car accident, and gets a bloody nose as well.
It's the same
thing. Yeah, and it's kind of like I don't know. I don't know if that was setting up the parallels between the two. That
they're very similar characters.
What's that?
They're very similar characters.
Yeah,
in their portrayal, in their diction, everything.
Yeah, I kind of didn't, for some reason didn't pick up on it like the first 50 times I saw it.
Dean, I did notate within the first 6 minutes of the film, like drunk driving's happening, car accidents are happening, bloody noses are happening. Like I actually wrote that down. I'm like, within the first 6 minutes of the movie.
Yeah,
it was
driving drunk.
It was 97.
Yeah, I mean, and they're putting
it was okay back then.
Cops are putting cops in cars drunk. They're like, "You can't drive."
Geez,
yeah.
You guys are like creepers back here.
Yeah.
There's so many great, so many great lines. This is a very quotable film, but
we didn't talk about any of the women.
The jury is divided on it, which is not a bad thing. I think I'm going to it's one of my favorites, and it's always going to be one of my favorites. So you guys have not have not put one chink, Roland, not one chink in the armor. Have you done? You have not even dented the Copland armor.
I'm gonna write it as a musical, and then we'll see.
Welcome to Copland.
That's it. And I'm gonna cast Michael Rappaport in it again because no one mentioned him tonight.
And he's great.
Hugh Jackman can play the Harvey Keitel character.
Yes.
Since he's so good on Broadway.
Will Ferrell.
All very
Will
good
Ferrell
points being married.
Yeah.
Yep.
What's that?
Yep.
Will Ferrell could be
it's funny you bring him up, Christy, because who do you think if he had been just a little bit older at this, and you see him now, I think Adam Sandler could have played Freddy.
What?
I probably would have bought that more than
actually. Adam Sandler is another good example of someone who steps out of their comfort zone.
He was good in Uncut Gems.
Uncut Gems.
Punch Drunk Love. I can't see him as this.
Did you see Hustle?
Yeah, but he's already playing, even in his screwball comedies at the time, the Happy Madison comedies. He's already like the underdog character, right? I think he could definitely do the sad
you
sack.
Eat pieces of shit for breakfast.
Eats pieces of shit for breakfast.
Yeah, Eric, I can see that, Eric.
I see it.
I can see it.
Yeah,
visually, definitely. I think visually, I could definitely see it.
But
especially now,
Jerry, would you be able to? So then, would you have a hard time buying that? Seeing like Adam Sandler, goofy child like Adam Sandler, because he broke out of that pretty quick with Punch Drunk Love. Actually,
he never saw
back in the '90s. But are you saying that you can't buy anybody that does that, or was it just particularly Stallone? As we wrap this up,
I could see, to use like an extreme, I could see a Sandler, because to me, Sandler's going from goofy to like Stallone. It's more of a visual thing, I think, to me. And I just
because he's so iconically Rambo and Rocky.
That's why he had to add the weight. I mean, it would have.
I had heard that, and I get that, but it's still
not enough.
He still ended it by being.
You just can't
Rambo.
be satisfied, Jerry.
Yeah.
You just can't be satisfied.
I just need him to be a little smarter. I just need him to be a little smarter. That's all.
A little smarter.
A little
okay.
bit. Just a little
those
bit
are all valid. Those are all valid.
Maybe that is all I would need to.
Because
I like his transformation. I like.
He certainly can't help the way he certainly can't help the way he looks.
No.
I mean, that's the thing. He even said he appears like that way but he's not, because of, he's got the slanted eye, the sunken eye. Yeah. He can't help that. That's whatever. But yeah,
to me, it's just
I think for me, there are probably one too many shots of close-ups of him in this movie where you're just kind of like
a little sad.
You can't. I see what Jerry's trying to say there.
No, you don't.
Pull that back a little bit and maybe give a little something more to the performance.
Maybe Carrot Top.
And by the end of it, like I said, he pulls out the shotgun.
Killed it. Carrot Top would have killed it.
Carrot Top as Superboy.
Yes, yes. The musical.
And by the way,
and Gallagher as Mo Tilden. Gallagher as the IA.
Gallagher's
Gallagher. Damn it.
They never give you napkins with these watermelons. We're going to do an episode of recasting movies with genre-specific other people.
Yeah, just comedians. Love Jerry Seinfeld as the Keitel character.
That's all. That's what we're going to do. We're going to recast films with other genre-specific people, which would be fun. Stand-up comedians. That was a good one. Would have been perfect. Or Sam Kinison as Mo Tilden. You blew it. Ah! All right.
So who would Pauly Shore play?
The Weasel. He would be Ray Liotta's character. The Weasel.
Now we're putting things together.
Now this is like Copland that you want to see, right?
Yeah.
And he's like Copland. Oh, lordy. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. The jury is split. No one has swapped sides. Unlike
That's
12 Angry Men, we did not sway any jurors. Everyone held firm, which is perfectly fine and great. Go see what the big deal is about then. See why this is so divisive. This little film from 1987 with a small, paltry $15 million
1997.
I said 1997.
No, you didn't.
87.
I said 97. Go back and listen.
I will.
I don't have to have it read back to me.
Listen,
say 97.
Dean's going to cleverly edit that out and fix it.
You better believe it. Fix it in post.
Small film in
fix that with
1997.
with a Rambo clip. Just put a Rambo clip over it, and that's it.
1874. Oh God! So no, check it out. It's absolutely on Prime. Expect to see the director's cut, which is 116 minutes. In full disclosure, the director's cut is a little too much. Actually the shorter theatrical cut is a lot tighter, which also may sway some of these panelists here if they only recently watched the director's cut. It can be a little. There's actually a little bit in there that doesn't need to be. It was a fat that could be sliced away, and I rarely say that about director's cuts. But anyway, check that out. Thank you, Nick Leshy. Thank you for being on the side of the Coplanders, and thank you, Christy, as well, for being on the side of the Coplanders. Jerry,
you mean the right side.
Yes,
Jerry.
This is it for me, right?
Adam Sandler. Oh no, Eric said Adam Sandler. I got it.
I said.
Okay.
I
You agreed, Jerry.
I did.
Check out Roland DeRucci, Ready Speaker podcast. Eric has guested on that. Nick has guested on it. So if you want to see some highbrow talk and not me editing in different years into the podcast, check out Roland DeRucci on Ready Speaker. That's on YouTube. So go ahead and check out his video episodes. He does a lot of great and current content. Not the old shabby stuff that me and Eric drag out. We drag out the old skeletons. Roland does a little bit more topical and timely stuff. So absolutely check him out. Ready Speaker on YouTube. So thank you, Nick. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Christy, for being on the side of the Coplanders as well. Thank you, Roland and Eric, as always. My best bud. But we fell on different sides of this one. This is the first time, I think.
Hey, total respect, man. I think it's a good, solid thriller.
There we go.
You know, I just expected.
All right, as we close out, Eric changed his mind, so that's 4 for Copland and 2 for. So we're gonna. No. That is exactly what I was fishing for, and I got it at the end. 4 for Copland and 2 that did not like it, so that is a majority for Copland. Winner by knockdown.
Nope.
Eric's going to print a retraction on the page tomorrow. Please disregard the last 4 minutes of the podcast. I was coerced into saying that and tricked. But anyway, thank you, everybody. Find us on your favorite podcast provider: Spotify, Apple, iTunes, Google, all those great ones. And we put new and old episodes up on YouTube as well. So after you go see Roland, go check out what we're doing. So for Nick, for Roland, for Jerry, for Christy, and of course, for Eric, I'm asking you, Dean is asking you to please be kind and rewind.